Okay, let's get started. First order of administrative business, I'd like to return problem set 5 to you. So let me go ahead and pass this around. They're in alphabetical order, or should be. Let me say something quickly about the grading of problem set 5. The distribution of scores on this problem set was, I think, quite good overall. So the scores that we have, the distribution scores from 90 to 100, there were 52. From 80 to 90, there were 23. From 70 to 80, there were 8. 60 to 70, there was 1. And less than 60, a total of 3 problem sets. The median score on the problem set was a 90. The mean was a little bit less. You can see it has this left tail, so the mean sort of has to be less than the median, but not a lot less. It's 87.5. And the standard deviation of this is 11.4. Okay, so problem set 5 is being returned. Those are the scores on the distribution of scores for problem set 5. A reminder that problem set 6 is due this Thursday. Let's see. Other questions about administrative stuff? It is. All right. Well, a couple other things I should mention in passing. For reading, the material is going to depend a little bit on the addition of these books you have. But for most of you, I think, who have Nicholson Snyder, the chapters you want to read will go up through a discussion of cost functions or cost minimization. That corresponds to chapters 10 and 11 in the Nicholson text. For the Perloff text, the corresponding chapters are 6 and 7. I think the very latest edition of Nicholson Snyder, which most of you I don't think have, it may be chapters 11 and 12. So make sure you check the topic before you well, you should read chapters 10 and 11 also, but you may need to go one chapter further. Okay. In addition, I'm going to, if I have time today, I'm going to talk a little bit about an example that I may pursue some more next time as well. That's an example of a California manufacturer who's been in the news a lot lately, Solyndra. So there's a useful Wikipedia entry on Solyndra that you might use as sort of a little background on that if you wish. Okay. And then finally, any questions about those administrative items? Okay. You all did me the favor last week of giving me some midterm evaluations. I've had a chance to read those and reflect on them a little bit. There are a few things I want to do a little bit differently going forward, sort of in response to some of the comments that you shared with me as far as how we manage the class. The first thing I'd like to do is to add some extra office hours. So these will be by appointment. I'm not sure how many of you have noticed this. Let me see if I can navigate here. So what I'd like to do is add extra office hours. There will be drop-in hours at the usual time on Mondays. That is 1:30 to 2:30. You can also go to the vSpace website and make an appointment to see me during other times. So let me just show you how that works, because I don't think many of you have actually made use of it. Let me see here. There we go. So here's our vSpace website. Let me see if I can do this. My screen isn't. And if you look over here on the left, where's my cursor? There it is. There's a field that says Professor Lincoln's office hours. If you click on that, you should get a Google Calendar. And so this is a piece of my calendar. And there are little tabs here that look like this. And if you click on those, it allows you to make an appointment with me. So look for the spot that says office hours, and there will be some spots during the week that you can make an appointment. If that doesn't work for whatever reason, you can also send me an email. But I'm setting aside time specifically to extra office hours for this course, so don't hesitate. Yeah, but it'll actually tell, because you're going to sign up, so it'll tell me who you are when you sign this. It's kind of neat. I hope it works well. Okay, let me see if I can. All right. Okay, so that's one thing. So extra office hours are one thing I'd like to do. This week I'm going to have some extra office hours on Friday. Again, you can sign up there. If those hours don't work for you or you have problems with the interface, email me. But there will be a little extra hassle involved. So that's one thing I'd like to do a little bit differently. Another thing I'd like to do differently is that for the second half of the course, you'll see today's will be a good example. There will be parts of the lecture during which there will be a fair amount of algebra. My experience so far, and several of you noticed on the evaluations, is that doing the math on the board works a little bit better, maybe in terms of pacing, than putting it up on the screen. So I'm going to do two things. First of all, I'll try to put the math I'm going to do in the lecture notes you can download from vSpace. So those should be up there. But I'll go ahead and do more lengthy mathematical work that I do on the board. So yeah, I'll do that on the board, as I say. That doesn't mean that the lecture notes will be incomplete. What I'll show on the screen here will be a subset of what you can download from vSpace. Needless to say, so today I'll do some math that will show up in the lectures on vSpace, also on the board. I'm not going to be perfect at anticipating questions and responses, so you can't count on the lectures capturing everything on the board, but I'll take a stab at making that work. Along with doing math on the board, especially for me, I have a couple kids in elementary school now. They're taking time tests for multiplication and that kind of stuff. And I was the kid in elementary school who always finished those last. So the little algebra mistakes and so on. If you catch them, so I guarantee that if I'm doing the work on the board instead of more carefully in front of my computer, that I'll make an occasional mistake. I'd really like you guys to catch those mistakes, so we don't sort of replicate errors that I make. If you catch me making a mistake on the board, tell me, and I'll give you an extra credit point. So extra credit for catching me in an error. And as with the other extra credit, that'll go to sort of supplementing your problem set score over the course overall. Okay. Is there a mistake already? Okay. And then finally, this is something I've been trying to do sort of all along, but have been less than perfect at doing it. I tried to put the lecture notes up on vSpace somewhat in advance. So this week's lectures are up there now, both today's and Thursdays. And so I haven't. I'll try to put them in advance. I haven't always done it reliably. I'll try to do that a little bit more reliably going forward. A catch, of course, is if I put up I work on these lecture notes a lot, and I tend to work on them until the last minute. So there may be differences in what you see in lecture and what's actually on vSpace as I make sort of last minute changes. But in any event, you should be able to find the lecture notes on vSpace more farther in advance. The trade-off will be that it may not reflect the actual content of the lecture quite as closely. Yes. I'm not unwilling to do that. I'm a little worried about the management. You'll have then two copies of the lecture notes. I could either make two copies of the lecture notes, or I could just replace the old ones. But then you wouldn't necessarily know what you sort of had in hand. Let me think about that. Sure. Okay. A reminder, I guess, that you can always capture exactly what's said in lecture by going to the webcast, the webcasting thing, by the way, although that format may not be ideal. Okay. All right. Questions about administrative stuff? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to begin today sort of work we've started. So what we've done since the midterm is really to talk about production functions. And we've had on our sort of hats as engineers, and we've thought about ways to characterize different production functions or production processes. But there hasn't been any economic behavior in what we've done so far. And sometimes we alluded to it. But really we've been characterizing physical processes is sort of what we've been up to. We've been talking about the technology that involves putting seeds in the ground and seeing what comes up if you add certain amounts of fertilizer and water. There hasn't been any sort of economic behavior in the sense that there hasn't been anybody making decisions yet in our story about what inputs to use in a crop or what inputs to put into a production function or a description of the problem that a person trying to solve a production problem like this is actually solving. So we're going to tackle that today. We're going to take off our engineer's hat and put our economist hat back on, and that's we're going to think about the problem that a firm faces in trying to solve the production problem. Before I start, I'm going to mention in passing an economist, Frank Knight, who is one of the sort of founders of the Chicago School of Economics in the mid-20th century, and one of the earlier than that actually, he's really one of the early important thinkers about what the nature of a firm was. And here's a remark from him that we'll come back to. The nature of competition is to reduce profits to zero. So that's something we'll return to later. All right, so let me start by just saying some stuff that's not technical at all about the nature of a firm. So the firm, to a considerable extent in countries like the U.S. or most developed countries, is to some extent even though we think about firms being involving private enterprise and sort of the opposite of government, to a large extent, firms as we know them now are a construction of the government because they're constructed in response to legal codes formulated by the government and in particular often details of the tax code. Okay, so the legal code in the U.S. creates a category of entities that are we'll call firms. There's a variety of different kinds of firms that are enumerated both in legislation and also the tax code in the U.S. And there's a legal fiction that's prevalent in the U.S. and most developed countries that a firm is rather like a person, that they have a sort of fictive personhood for many legal purposes. And the word corporate suggests that. Corpus is Latin for body. But a firm, of course, is not a person. So what is even a firm operated by one person still isn't a person. So how should we think about these things? Okay, so the best way to think about a firm in terms of what it is in a primitive sense is that it involves a group of people making decisions about production. So it's a collection of people working together to produce something. And the people involved can be workers. That's sort of the most immediate thing that comes to mind. But they can also be owners of a firm. This distinction between workers and owners is the sort of classical one, or maybe slightly post-classical distinction drawn by Karl Marx between he talked about capital and labor and the creation of a capitalist society, or sort of the innovation of capitalism being a division between capital and labor. So the people who supplied capital to the firms might be different from the people who supplied labor. That's Marx's not unreasonable description of what a capitalist society is. In addition to workers and owners, though, labor, you can think of it as labor and capital if you like, they're also suppliers of inputs. So all the firms will think about will be using inputs of some sort that might include capital and labor, but might also include other things. So they're suppliers. They're also, of course, critically customers. A firm wouldn't exist if it didn't have customers to sell things to. All right, so I said earlier, there's a bunch of different ways that we're using firm as a catch-all to describe a bunch of different sort of legal arrangements that people can gather together to produce under, a bunch of different umbrellas. So the first of those I'll talk about is the sole proprietorship. So this is actually a single person producing something. So that's in a way a very old-fashioned mode of production. It's not necessarily like Karl Marx at all. There can be a single person who's supplying both capital and labor to a firm. Even in this case, the firm is not the person, though. Essentially, in this case, for tax reasons. If you operate your own business, then when you fill out your taxes in April, there will be a Schedule C you'll fill out that will include a description of the revenues of your sole proprietorship, but also the costs. And the nice thing about using Schedule C to describe your income is you can deduct the costs from the revenues you've gotten, and you're only taxed on the difference between those things. So declaring yourself a sole proprietor allows you to be a firm and not pay taxes on income that you use to pay costs associated with production in your sole proprietorship. So even a single person operating to produce something isn't really a person. They're still a firm, and they're treated differently. The income from that firm is treated differently than, say, the labor earnings for that person would be. Okay, what else? A partnership is another example. Again, this has a distinct legal status. So if you have a partnership, you'll be filling out Schedule K for the IRS, and this is a case where ownership is shared among two or more people. So a partnership suggests it's more than one person. That's the case. The sort of stereotypical case we'll think about is one where the partners are also workers. So one partnership, which is fairly common, might be a law firm, for example. So a partner in a law firm will supply both labor, possibly capital to the firm, in the same way as a sole proprietorship would, but there'll be two or more of those people. That law firm can, of course, employ other people who aren't partners. They can employ other lawyers who aren't partners, or other helpers, other workers who don't share in the profits of the firm, but instead receive labor earnings. What was I going to say? Partnership. Oh, one thing I'll say. So I say here that typically partners are also workers. That's not necessarily, doesn't have to be the case. You can also have a partnership which replicates to some extent the division between labor and capital. If you have a firm, or if you work in a partnership where you're the person working, you may have a silent partner who doesn't work for the firm, doesn't take an active part in the management of the firm, but simply provides capital to the firm. So that's a so-called silent partner. Okay. All right. Another form that gets overlooked but is very important, actually quite important, especially in agriculture in the U.S., are cooperatives. There are also a number of interesting cooperatives here in Berkeley, which is a consequence of sort of a movement in the 70s, which is interesting. So a cooperative can take a lot of forms. If the owners of the cooperative are also workers, it's a so-called workers' cooperative, then it looks rather like a partnership. So we have some famous examples of those in Berkeley here, actually. Anyone know some of them? Cheese Board is perhaps the most famous. There's some others, though. What's that? Oh, is Lancaster Workers' Co-op? I didn't know that. Yeah, I don't know about that. I was thinking Missing Link is another example of a workers' co-op, the bicycle store on Shattuck. There are some others. There was a very famous food co-op that closed down in the early 90s, I guess. Anyway, so co-ops have a storied history in Berkeley in particular. They're important elsewhere also. So aside from workers' co-ops, there's also there are supplier co-ops, and one of the most important examples of this occurs in agriculture, where farmers may produce their crops independently of each other, but they collectively form a so-called marketing co-op, where they supply. What they do is they guarantee or they promise to deliver their output to the cooperative, and the cooperative markets it for them. So that's a case where the members of the co-op are actually suppliers to the co-op, to supply the good that the co-op sells. And that's a quite important form of cooperative in the U.S. And there are also some large supply co-ops. So these are often sometimes this can be an example of these are small firms that gather together collectively to purchase things like office supplies. Or what was the famous food example that's escaping me at the moment? Anyway, so there's also a supply cost, another sort. And then finally, here's the one that when I tell you talk about firms, this is the one that probably comes to mind, though. Corporation. Corporations in the U.S. are responsible for the bulk of production measured by value. And corporations are different from any of these other forms here in for one very important regard, that's that they have limited liability. So the nice thing about a corporation, from the point of view of the firm or the owners of the firm, is that you can completely separate ownership of the firm from other roles. So the people who own the firm may not work there at all. They supply capital. In the sense that they're the owners. They have equity in the firm. But limited liability is the big benefit of the corporate form of ownership. The idea is that if the firm goes broke, so that its obligations, its debt exceeds its assets, in any of these other forms, the owners will be on the hook for the debts. But in this form, the corporation can declare bankruptcy and default on its obligations. Yes.
So what's the motivation for everyone just becoming a corporation? Like, why do they
Yeah, well, so it involves more paperwork for sure. But most of the and some of these other forms have some advantages that corporations don't. So agricultural marketing cooperatives, for example, get some tax benefits that corporations don't. Partnerships, actually, I gave the example of a law firm. If you look at actual law firms in the Bay Area, I think there's a form called a limited liability partnership, which has this limited liability piece to it. But it's a trade-off between complexity of the dealings you have to have with tax authorities. Also, the benefits of being able to have limited liability for a sole proprietor are a little bit more limited because you can always declare personal bankruptcy as well. So there's a trade-off between cost and benefits here, and there's some costs associated with being a limited liability firm as well. Yes. That's absolutely right. So there are other mechanisms to allow you to escape the possibility of your firm doing very poorly if you purchase insurance against various bad shocks. Okay. Anyway, so these are all nevertheless distinct sort of forms of firms. It's not exhaustive, by the way. There are other funny cases. We mentioned limited liability partnerships as an example. But anyway, those are the principal forms in the U.S. Okay, so so that's sort of a description of the firm. So a description of different ways in which people can work together and call themselves a firm. And what I'd like you to take away from this, you don't need to memorize these forms, but what I'd like you to take away from this is that the mode of ownership or the organization of the firm is very sensitive to sort of sometimes details in the tax code or the legal framework that the firm is operating in. So the choice of how you do this depends on these trade-offs we're talking about between complying with various auditing requirements and having limited liability or the benefits of escaping antitrust provisions if you're an agricultural marketing co-op or whatever. The form the firm takes, formally at least, depends on the framework of laws and the tax code it faces. Okay, so for any of those firms, though, we can think about their problem as being sort of being composed of two pieces. So now we're sort of setting aside the details of how the firm is organized, and we're going to try to describe the problems we're going to face any of those firms in the way they're organized, or any of those sort of modes of organization of the firms. So there's going to be two pieces to the problem facing the firm. The first piece is going to be the problem of minimizing costs. So the idea is the firm produces some output of some sort. It might be multiple kinds of outputs, but we'll stick with a single kind of output for pedagogical reasons most of the time. So they're going to figure out what the minimum cost way to produce some level of output Y is. So if you were a Tesla Motors is an example of a firm that's decided to produce a certain number of electric vehicles in this coming year. So their job is given that their job going forward is given that amount of output they decided to produce, what's the cheapest way to produce it? Okay, so you can imagine at least formally a firm figuring out the minimum cost way to produce any amount of output, be it cars or whatever. And then there's a second stage where given your minimum cost mode of production for any Y, you choose the appropriate level of output, choose the level of Y you want to operate at. So notice what we're doing. We're breaking this up into two decisions. One is how do I produce a certain amount of stuff, and that's going to depend on things like the marginal rate of technical substitution. So what's the optimal mix of inputs I'm going to use? What's the right technology? And then given that, there's a choice of output level, which really you can think of as a choice about scale. So we've talked about factory returns, and factory returns are going to be critical in this first stage. And then second of all, we talked about returns to scale, and that returns to scale is going to be critical for choosing the output level for the terms we're going to want to operate at. Okay, so up there so far? All right, so now I'm going to make there's an assumption I'm going to make often that I'll lay out now, although you'll see it's not going to be important for the cost minimization we're going to talk about today. Well, hold on, that's not quite true. Okay, so anyway, we're going to often adopt an assumption of the firms being in a competitive industry. And the key here is not, the trick is that we need to, competition leads to two things. The first thing we saw in this quote from Frank Knight, competition tends to make profits equal to zero. So that's one thing. The other thing it does, and that's what we're going to rely on more here, is it means the firms are going to be price takers. If there's another firm that can produce the same good, or if there's a bunch of those firms, then a firm isn't going to have the luxury of being able to set the prices for its goods, or set the prices for the inputs it pays for. So the critical thing we're going to assume today is that firms take prices as given, okay? In the same way that consumers take prices as given in our description of consumer behavior. Of course, this assumption of competitive behavior is not an assertion that all firms operate in competitive industries. That's certainly not true. A lot of the machine we'll develop here will apply to a non-competitive industry as well. That's one, and the way to think about a non-competitive industry, or one way to think about it, is an industry in which a firm has some influence over prices. So it may be able to have some influence over the prices over which it sells its output, in which case we'd say that the firm has some monopoly power. It may have some power to affect the prices it pays for its inputs, in which case we call it a monopsonist, or we'd say it has a monopoly power. Okay, but for the rest of today, we're going to assume that the firm just takes prices as given. And as I said, that follows from an assumption of the firm being located in a competitive industry. All right, so let me go ahead and I'm going to describe the cost minimizing problem for the firm. So this should look kind of familiar if you look at it. Does this problem resemble anything you've seen in consumer theory? Well, let me describe it first, I guess. So there's a production function f, using a capital F here. There's some inputs, x1 and x2. So this is just like the production function we've been playing with for the last couple lectures. And what's new today is that where we had a production function before, today we've also got price.